need you to help us to understand how TDD will help on application testing and development. So yeah, you can start.
Fantastic. Okay, look, welcome everyone. My name's Gary and I'm the Director of Customer Experience and Empowerment for JLabs Australia. And with me today, I've got Sujit, who's one of our technical consultants and a Power Tools subject matter expert as well. Now, first of all, look, really big thanks to Ek and Narapat and the rest of K2 Thailand team for allowing us to discuss this topic with you today. And what we're going to talk about today is how we accelerate K2 success through test-driven development practices and how we help others to accelerate their K2 success as well. Now, first, for this to be successful, we need to deliver quality solutions daily, keep getting quick wins, and ultimately ensure users buy into our solutions. To give you a quick insight into us and also just a brief introduction, who is JLabs? Now, we've operated globally as a K2 consulting practice for over 10 years now, and we're a multi-award winning software consultancy who develop and maintain software products and solutions. We integrate and optimize systems, we streamline processes, and we invest quite heavily in R&D, particularly around our Power Tools suite of products. Currently, we've got presence in Australia, in Sri Lanka, USA, Singapore, and also Europe. Our CEO, Jay Srikantha, he's been affiliated with K2 for more than 11 years now, and through his relationships with K2 has become one of a handful of K2 insiders, was a member of the K2 advisory board, and has empowered JLabs to be one of a very select few K2 global technology partners, and obviously for that, we're very proud. Okay, so what is test-driven development or TDD? By definition, test-driven development is software development processes that relies on the repetition of a very short development lifecycle. And first, the developer writes an initially failing automated test case that defines a desired improvement or new function, then produces the minimum amount of code to pass that test, and finally refactors the new code to acceptable standards. Now, with K2's low-code digital process automation platform, you can essentially rapidly develop and deploy powerful process applications at scale across your organization. So inherently, K2 platform coupled with Power Tools lends itself to employing test-driven development as a delivery methodology. However, the project delivery methodology you decide to use to integrate applications into your business doesn't really affect the how or why you should use Power Tools. The question is more about when do you integrate Power Tools into your delivery process? And essentially the answer is now. You know, if you look at the theories behind DevOps as an example, it's the combination of philosophies, practices, and tools that increase an organization's ability to deliver applications and services at a very high velocity, which means evolving and improving products at a faster pace than organizations using traditional software development and infrastructure processes. Now, Power Tools can be phased in at any stage of the application lifestyle, as it supports test automation, troubleshooting, and administration. Now, what is Power Tools? You know, so with Power Tools, you can administer K2 from one application, allowing you to support and troubleshoot with a lot more efficiency. You've got the ability to create, execute, and schedule test scripts. You have the ability to auto-generate test scripts and bulk execute them. You can save and reuse the test scripts across process versions and share them with other testers. You can generate and store the test results across process application and version changes. Now, we often get asked the questions, where does Power Tools fit in, you know, within our development process? And, you know, if we look at, you know, the system development life cycle, The answer is that Power Tools can be phased in at any stage of the application lifecycle, as it supports test automation, troubleshooting, and administration. So if we look at the analysis and design phase of any project, we can start building test cases, which eventually translate into automated test scripts. And once we move into the development, being in Agile or DevOps, etc., we can start building scripts as the application evolves. And apart from testing complex application behaviors, scripts can test for artifacts which do not exist or test against support-driven test methodology practice, as an example. Now, of course, reports are generated to complement your test cases. Now, during implementation phases, having access to reusable scripts across multiple environments is priceless. And these scripts can be used to test against a particular artifact or be brought together to form a suite of regression tests for you guys. Other features, such as artifact comparisons across environments, such as dev, test, UAT, and production, ensure you have proven versions deployed across multiple environments. Power Tools, deep troubleshooting and administration features also really come into play during the support phase or during development to really understand where issues lie and quickly fix them on the fly. Software upgrades can often be a daunting task as well. Now, with Power Tools, you can quickly set up scripts to capture the as-is of an environment, and once upgraded, can test against or check whether the upgrade was successful and applications are still functioning as expected. Now, as you really start to explore Power Tools, you'll begin to understand how using the tool really helps to accelerate the build to implementation process and introduce quality applications into the businesses very quickly. Now, on this screen, we have a summary of some of Power Tools' features. Shortly, Sujit is going to provide some demonstrations for us, but just to call out some of the functionality, you can produce visual test results, you can compare task items, you can compare instance versions, fix errors within process instances, migrate instances, monitor performance, etc. From a tester perspective, you can create and reuse test script. You can conduct consistent and regression testing using predefined test cases. You can compare performance through reporting and so forth. But the amazing part of this is that you can tie all of this together to build yourself some very comprehensive and solid regression tests. And some of that Sujit will show you shortly as well. So for now, it's demonstration time, and I'm sure this is what you all wanted to see, exactly what Power Tools looks like in the flesh. So for now, I'm going to hand the session over to Sujit, who will take you on through a quick tour of Power Tools. So Narapat, if you could just assist to make Sujit the presenter there, and he'll go through and present the demonstration of Power Tools. So over to you, Sujit.
Thank you, Gary.
Just a moment มีคำถามอยากถามก่อนครับ Okay, Sujit, no question. Go on.
Okay, if you can let me know that you can see my screen as well, that'd be great. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, Excel.
Okay, cool. All right. So yeah, as Gary mentioned, I'm just gonna go through the demonstration of Power Tools and just talk to you about a little bit on how we, I guess, manage testing and what we can do to do that procedure. So currently what you're seeing is the Excel file, and what I have done is created test cases that can apply to any application. And we're going to go through each of the test cases and how we create them in Power Tools, and then running those tests in Power Tools as well to get the results. So as you can see, the first test case is very simple. It's form submission. So as a user, I want to input all the necessary fields so that I can submit the form. The steps that needs to take is open submission form, fill in all the fields and click submit. And expected outcome is form submitted. So you can have extra fields like environment and users. So maybe you want to run this test in production environment in this case, and you can maybe run it in user one or different users if you need to. So this is kind of like a baseline of a test case. You might be not using Excel, you might be using different applications to store your test cases, but that's something like we can look at to kind of begin your automation testing. So we're going to just run through these test cases I mentioned. So I'm just going to show you Partals, which is in the background. So I'm just going to move this Excel file. Okay, so what you see is Partals. This is the interface for smart form testing. So I'm going to skip the main user interface, which I will touch on the next few sessions later. But for now, I'm going to focus on the smart form testing. So just give me a second. Okay. So once you click onto the form on the left-hand side here, you'll see that the form is loaded up on the right-hand side screen. So in this case, you're able to interact with the actual form as well. So if you need to type in anything into the form, you're able to do this through Partals. There's two nodes here, dependency and power tester. So power tester node here, that's what you're going to be using to create your scripts as well. So I have some scripts that have already been created, but I'm going to show you some to create it from scratch as well. So first thing I want to do is test one of the test cases. I'll bring back the Excel so you'll be able to see which one I'm going to test first. Okay, the first one I want to test is instead of the first test case here, I'm going to start from the bottom because I want to make sure that I can enter the required fields necessary to be able to have form validation initially. So this fifth test case here, so pretty much says as a user, I want to check the required fields to contain a value so that I can continue with the form submission. The step is open submission form, enter the input. Then I want to cancel the form because I don't want to submit yet. I just want to make sure that required field is able to be inputted correctly into the form. So the expected outcome is required field to have validation error, which I'll show you what that means in a second. So just moving this Excel back. So I'm going to open one of the test script. This is going to test that particular test case. So once you open a test script, you can see on the left-hand side panel here, it's going to be all the controls that you can configure to your liking. And onto your right-hand side is where you can do your configuration. So entering the input for your configuration. On the bottom side, you can see the actual form. So you'll be able to make sure it's the correct one. And you can also interact with this particular form as well. So if you want to type values again into these fields, you are able to do that here. So the test case is making sure that these required fields here, the red marks here, that is entered correctly. So to do that, first you're going to identify which form you're going to be working in. So it's going to be this particular form here. That's going to be the form looking at the top panel, which is the expense claim details. You can see currency ID picker, which is this one. Then you go to department ID dropdown list, which is the one below here. So we can select the different departments. So I want to make sure these fields are being inputted correctly. So there's two ways of entering the actual input. One way is actually selecting these controls and going to the value section on the right-hand side and actually inputting the actual value that you want to test. The second method is actually typing or selecting the input through the form. So maybe selecting it through the form and just actually typing the names or anything that you need to do in the input to make sure that's the one that's going to take. So in this case, I already set up the input already. So what I want to do is make sure that those fields are getting entered correctly. So what I have done is gone to each of the controls and made sure there's an assert function. So if I go into the right-hand side assert configuration, I'm able to select different controls here to make sure that it contains a certain value. So it's making sure that it contains the word finance, to test the validation to make sure that there's input being entered into those controls to validate. So I have done that for I have done that to be paid by, and also for the project reference as well. So I have entered 2 assert function just to check those validation areas. So once you're happy with all the settings, then you can press start button at the top to run the test. So once I run the test, it will make a bit more sense. So I'll begin the test now. So it's going to load the execution steps here. So each step is going to be executing each of the controls. And on the bottom side of the screen, you'll be able to see the actual form being entered. So as a developer, or while you're developing the actual application, you'll be able to see which controls might be not executing properly, or which controls are not performing as you expect it to be. So you can do those sections. So that went pretty quick, so I'm going to just go back into the test results. So as you can see, if I check in the top execution rows, you can see once it's executed the project reference text box, it's giving the validation error, which we have set up. Then it continues on to the next row, and you'll keep testing the whole form. And at the end of the results, it will tell you the overall results, which has failed, which is correct because we have made sure that there's a validation involved in that one. So if I wanted to validate another field, for example, let's say I wanted to validate the claim title. So I just need to find the claim title here. I'll go to the save function, which is set up, which is okay. Department. Yep, set up right as well. Okay, so I'm going to set up a validation for the date. So go into the save function. From here, I'll select the control for the date. So it would be show submission month calendar. And there's different operators, so you'll be able to test for hidden fields, visible controls, or you can test for warning pop-ups or in-field validation as well. So depending on what you want to test or validate, you can select a different operator here. So I'm going to make sure I enter the exact value that I have typed into the form. And press OK. So every time you make a changes, you want to make sure it's saved. So it saves any changes that you make onto the script. Then all you have to do is press start, and it will just run the test again. So as you can see, with the manual testing, you would have to go through all of the form again and fill in from the base. Whereas with Power Tools, if you wanted to change a small thing, you can just go into the script and just change one line, and everything else is going to be configured the way you wanted from previous configuration. So again, it will check all of the fields, and it will just make sure to check those validation as well. So as you can see, it gives the same result because we have the same validation information there. So if I remove these validation, then I'll just get a past result. But I'll show you different scripts for the different test cases now. That's for checking the required field. So now that we have tested that the required field is going to be working as we expected, now we want to test maybe something like adding a list item into the list item field. So I'm going to go into one of the single list item script that I've created. So So as you can see, it's exactly the same script. So what we can do is we can copy and paste scripts. So we can just copy the previous script that we have created, and all you have to do is, again, you just have to change one line, and that'd be it. So all the configuration that we had before, with all the input is going to be saved exactly the same. So we don't need to worry about any of the input. Now we just need to worry about entering an item in the list item. So I'll find the necessary view for that. Then I'll go onto the right hand side to inject the form to create those list item. So by doing this, I can select the script necessary to create a list item. And the form script builder, I'm going to leave it in 0. That means it's going to only create one list item. And I want to make sure that it clicks after each of the records. And set that to be true. So I'm just going to remove this part here. So once you have created the script, so I'm going to just remove this quickly. So as you can see, this I was selecting the view. So I want to select the add button because I want to create the script, create the list item when the add button is clicked. So I'll just set the view to be true just initially. I'll click onto the add tool button here. So as you can see, it's already set up. So you can see that form script is set to be the item that's going to be used to create a list item, and button action is set to click after each record, and 0 because I just want to add one list item. So I'm going to save this. And just before we move on, I'll show you that if you wanted to run this in different environment, as I showed you in the test case, you can select the environment from the script root. So you can see that if you have multiple environment, then you'll be able to execute this in different environments by selecting the drop-down list here. So if you wanted to run this as a different user, all you have to do is select a user from a run as user. So you can search this from K2 user, or if you have AD accounts, then you can use AD user as well. And as soon as you start using a few of the users, you'll be able to select them from favorites instead of having to search each of the user again and again. So I'm just going to run this test. So this test case is going to be adding the list item. So we're just going to test to make sure that it can add a list item. So if this doesn't work, then you know that you need to go back to developing and to make sure that your logic is correct in order to make that list work, list item to be added correctly. So same as before, it's going to execute each of the steps as necessary, and you'll be able to interact while it's actually playing out as well. So you can see there's a pop-up. This is going to be the item that you need to add into the list item. So it's going to fill in the pop-up of the list item. So it's going to fill in those information that needed. So once that's done, you can see the list item has been added. Then it will submit the form. And you can go back to see the test results if you need to. Again, you can see that each of the execution steps to make sure that it's the correct steps that it's taken. And you can see if you close this, then you'll be able to see the previous record and what has been entered as well. So going back to the path test again. So now I want to create a test. Now I have a test case to add multiple items. So if I wanted to make sure that it adds multiple list items, not just single ones, then all I have to do is, again, copy this particular script and then create a new one with using the inherit script. So I'll just do that for you. by doing the inherit script, all the initial data, so input that you need to enter those data is going to be copied over. And now I just need to go into the actual list item section here. Make sure that's true. Then go into the add tool button. So all you have to configure is just the form that you need to inject to create as a list item. And set the button option. So what you want to do, what you want the button to do. And once you have selected that, then this time, since I have 2 items in the list item, all you have to do is just increase that number to 1. So it's 1 more time from the initial record that's been added. And just save this particular script. So let's call it multiple items. It's okay. So that's all you have to do, and that's pretty much configured to make sure that it adds 2 items. So press start. And then it was going to do the execution steps, and as you saw before, it's going to show you the form, and it's going to input, and it's going to also add 2 records this time. So you can see that it's going to be very easy to test these test cases now, because you already have the script. Next time you come back, you can just press play and test those 2 scenarios. So you can always keep testing while you're developing as well, to make sure that those areas can be functioning correctly. So it's now adding the first test case, first list item. And now it's going to execute the second time, just to add the next list item. So as you can see, the click add tool button is repeated twice, because you want to add 2 times. So it's doing the execution again to make sure it adds in another list item. So it's very easy in terms of just setting up the script 1 time. Then next time you come in, it's pretty much running the script only. You don't need to worry about anything else. So that's it. So you can see that it's been added to list items, and you can see that it added the 2 list items here, and you can also see in the execution step that's executed that add button twice. And it's very easy to configure that section to be saying, let's add multiple list items. And you can see the form being submitted because the submit button's been enabled. So if I go into the script builder and going down to the buttons, so as you can see, there's a button that's going to be clicked at the end of the form. So you can see that it's set to true. So that means that it's going to click the actual submit button. So if I didn't want to click the submit button, I can set this to be false, and then it will not click the button. So it's very easy to configure if it's in different scenarios if you need to do that. You can also give it a response delay. So maybe if the form takes a bit of time to fill in, then you can say give it 30 seconds or 30 seconds before you click the actual form. So you can give it that different time limit as well, to mimic how the human behavior with the form is, or human interaction with the form is like. And you can configure different things there depending on how complicated your application is. So now that you have done the different test cases and have got the results of actual running the script, you can go back into the Excel file here, and you can just mark them as, let's say, for done. But let's say if you did some changes, or if you want to retest these test cases again, all you have to do is go back into the path tester, and just by selecting the script, and you can just start from here. Then it will just rerun those tests, so you can get another results if you need to, and you can also go back to view the previous results as well. So if you wanted to know that when was the last time you actually ran the same test, the same test cases, then you can actually go back to see each of the test cases, and you can see the same results. You can see the documentation for that actual particular result as well. So you can save this, email this, and print this out. So you got all you need to know to make sure that there's a record kept for your test cases. And if you wanted to do a bit more complex testing, so if I just reopen this script here. So if I go into the past script editor instead of the builder, so I'll just wait till that form load first. So if I go into the past script editor, you might be a bit more familiar with the XML coding. So then you'll be able to actually add in different controls that doesn't exist into the form. So let's say if you wanted to add in an extra button that's saying close or something like that, or if you want to add in extra field of display field, maybe saying name or list name or something like that, you can edit this XML field to make sure that it tests that particular section as well. So as you can see, if you add something that's not in the form, and if you run the test, it will come up with an error saying that this control doesn't exist, or there's a fail in the test case, fail in the test script because we couldn't find this control or something like that. So you can add in something that's not there onto the form, so you don't have to only test things that's available to you in the script builder or in the actual form itself. So you can get into a bit more details into testing if you need to do those kind of tests. So yeah, again, going to test results, you'll be able to see if you did the run test, then you'll be able to see the test results. Existing results is always there for you to check back on if you need to. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you in terms of how to use your test case and how to use your test case to build your script. Then rerunning those tests again. And if you want to change any extra information, then you can just go back into the script. And I was just wanted to show you how simple it is to just edit small fields to run those tests. And also you can copy those scripts again to have to cover the multiple test cases. So I got one for the single list item, I got one for the multiple list item, then I have one for the set, and I got one for the submit. So this way you can break it down to different components, and you can test different components individually, and have one that tests from end to end as well. So that's what I pretty much wanted to show you. So I can pass it back to Gary if there's anything else that you want to say.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sujit. And look, I'm hoping everyone saw, really how K2 and Power Tools, really lends itself to test-driven development practices. Because of, the rapid way we're able to bring applications into production environments with K2's little to no code platform, along with being able to then test those particular developments through Power Tools, we can really bring quality applications into production very, very, very quickly. So look, for now, would like to hand it over to you guys to ask any questions if you do have any questions.
อยากถามก่อนไหมครับ
ถามเป็นภาษาไทยก่อนก็ได้ครับ
ถามเป็นภาษาไทยก่อนก็ได้นะครับผมช่วยถามให้เป็น testing tool ครับใช่
คือตอนแรกอาจารย์ผมเคยคุยกับเขาจริงๆผมว่าอยากได้ลักษณะเนี่ยถ้าทำเสร็จแล้วเราคิดขึ้นไปบนโปรดักชันเลยได้ไหมอะไรอย่างเงี้ยหรือว่ามันต้องเทสในระบบของเขาอะไรอย่างเงี้ยคำถามหนึ่งคือ
สมมติเทสเสร็จ
ทูเขาทำเทสเสร็จแล้วเนี่ยสามารถบิวไอ้พวกเนี้ยขึ้นโปรดักชันได้ไหมมุ่งเราที่
Hello. Okay. Gary has a question from the audience. The question is that after you finish testing and every test case is passed, is it possible to no? The question is that your tool is able to build the package and automatically deploy to production after test is done or not? I understand it's just like the dev operation things that after testing, if all the thing is passed, automatically build and deploy to the production. Is it possible to do that?
Look, very good question. Look, Power Tools is just really around the test automation, troubleshooting, and administration. We don't do any packaging and deploying from that perspective. So at this stage, once the test has passed, you will have to go back into your K2 management console and package and deploy. We have looked into the possibility of doing that. But unfortunately, some of the limitations in terms of interfacing with the K2 platform doesn't really allow us to do that. But that is something we're working with K2 Labs to try and achieve at a later stage. But at this stage, once your test has passed, you will have to then go into the management studio and package and deploy when you are ready.
Okay.
I just wanted to add a little bit more on that one. So yeah, you do have this package and deployed, but what you can do is after you have deployed the actual solution, you can actually use Power Tools again to retest it just by changing the environment. You can change it to point it to your production environment, so you can rerun the same test that you created using Power Tools on the production environment. So you can make sure that before package is all okay, and also after the package is also okay as well.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. ครับก็คือเขาบอกว่าตอนนี้มันจะมีคือเขายังไม่สามารถที่จะเขียนอินเทอร์เฟซให้ช่วยแพ็คให้ก็เลยยังไม่สามารถที่จะออโต้ดิพลอยจริงๆเพราะว่าในส่วนของ deploy ครับมันมี PowerShell script ในการ deploy ตัว KSPX ให้อยู่แล้วเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยแต่ว่าสิ่งที่เขาบอกเราก็คือว่าแต่สิ่งที่มันช่วยได้อีกทีนึงก็คือว่าหลังจากที่เราแพ็คด้วยแมนนวลของเราเนี่ยไป deploy แล้วครับเรายังทำ testing แบบนี้ได้อีกรอบหนึ่งบน production ถ้าเกิดอยากจะแน่ใจว่ามัน deploy ไปแล้วมัน work จริงๆอะไรแบบนี้ก็จะใช้ประโยชน์ในด้านนั้นแทนก็คือใช้สคริปต์เดิมเลยที่เขียนไว้ในนี้ครับไปใช้บน production
ตอนแรกผมเคยเข้ามาก็คืออยากจะได้อย่างเงี้ยจริงๆคือ
ครับ
อยากได้
มันเข้าใจว่ามันเป็นแบบเขาเรียกอะไรนะ CDCI ป่ะครับที่เหมือนกับทำออโตเมตเหมือนพวก DevOps ที่เขาทำกันว่ามันถ้ามันผ่านหมดเนี่ยออโต้ดิพลอยไปเลย
แต่ยังไม่ได้
ยังครับยังแต่ไม่แน่ครับเพราะผมเคยรีเควสบางอย่างจะเข้าไปครับเขาก็รีสปอนส์ได้ค่อนข้างเร็วเพราะอย่างที่มันจะมีฟีเจอร์ที่เป็นหลายๆบรรทัดใช่ไหมครับอันนั้นแหละตอนแรกก็ยังทำยากอยู่แล้วเขาก็รู้สึกว่ามันยากเพราะผมก็อันไหนทำให้ดูหน่อยเขาก็กดอยู่นานเลย ผมก็โอเคแล้วเขาก็หายไป2 อาทิตย์เขาบอกว่าไอมีวิธีใหม่แล้วเขาก็บอกว่าเนี่ยเป็นเขาก็ไปเพิ่มฟังก์ชันที่ว่าทำซ้ำกี่รอบสำหรับสคริปต์นี้ใส่ไป3 รอบก็ทำ3 บรรทัดอะไรอย่างเงี้ยก็คือผมว่าข้อดีของที่นี่คือ1เขาเป็นimplementer ด้วยคือเขานอกจากเราจะทำเครื่องมือให้แล้วเขาก็เป็นบริษัทที่รับคอนซัลท์ด้วยในตัวเลยนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยเครื่องมือตัวนี้ผมเข้าใจว่ามันเริ่มต้นจากที่เขาทำใช้เองแหละแล้วมันเวิร์กก็เลยขายคิดว่าเป็นแบบนั้นมีคำถามอยากถามอย่างอื่นอีกไหมฮะGary, it seems like there are no questions, so can you hint us a little bit about the next topic that you will share on the next meetup?
Absolutely. So look, today we've seen, obviously in general, how Power Tools works well with test-driven development. And the focus today was around smart form testing. The next time we meet, we'll be looking at how we can use test-driven development and test against workflows. So from that perspective, we'll be doing a little bit of a deep dive into the K2 workflow and how we can test against scenarios that doesn't exist. And then once we produce those failed test results, we can then go ahead and develop the appropriate solution and retest to ensure that it functions as expected. So the whole idea is that we're going to really work towards understanding how K2 and Power Tools works within a DevOps environment, within a really agile environment, and be able to really embrace the test-driven development practice.
Okay. Yeah. So thanks very much for today. So, and I will catch up with you later. And
Absolutely.
next time. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Look, if I can just have control just for one more screen.
Okay. Bye bye for now.
Okay, look, I was just, can I just show one more screen, because I just wanted to let everyone, I mean, look, I can just talk around this one. But if you did want to start having a look at Power Tools, and if you've already got a K2 environment installed, you can go to www.powertools.com.au and start having a play. We're more than happy to assist you guys. If you need to have some questions or some more personalized demos, you can reach out to the team, the K2 Thailand team, and they'll be more than happy to help. And then, if further assistance is required, we can jump on board and help as well. But look, in saying that, really thank you, Ek, thank you, Narapat, and the rest of the team for your time. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and looking forward to catching up again next week.
Next month.
Or next month. I'm so excited, I thought it was next week, but looking forward to catching up next month.
Okay. my fault. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.